Welcome to Bunny Trails, a whimsical adventure of idioms and other turns of phrase. I'm Dan Pugh.
And I'm Shauna Harrison. Each week, we take an idiom or other turn of phrase and try to tell the story from its entry into the English language to how it's used today. Before I figured out I have ADHD and found methods to help manage it, I occasionally, or frequently, felt embarrassed at the realization that I'd been talking for minutes on end. It made me feel pretty awkward, but I ended up learning how to use it to my advantage. It helped that my dad was encouraging and positive about my talkative nature. He always told me that I just have the gift of gab. There are several common usages today for the phrase gift of gab. It may be a way to say a person is comfortable in conversation or that they enjoy talking, or perhaps that they just talk a lot. It's frequently used to imply not only a lot of talking, but certain skills or talents related to conversation. According to Oxford English Dictionary, gift of gab is, quote, an ability to speak fluently and eloquently, especially in a way which persuades or charms the listener, end quote. Now, our phrase has two key words, gift and gab. The word gift in the context of our phrase refers to a natural ability or talent. As for the second key word, Oxford English Dictionary tells us gab means, quote, talk in early use, light, entertaining chat, lively conversation. Later, chiefly, foolish or inconsequential talk, prattle, twaddle, end quote. When we combine the words into the phrase, however, gab takes on a new meaning. We're ready for our early appearances in print, but first I'll warn you that the excerpt is going to sound slightly off. This early attestation is from the Whig's Supplication, or the Scotch Hudibras, a mock poem in two parts by Samuel Colville, published in 1681. Quote, to be a bad poet may well be a shame. It is no sin. Neither is it a shame for me in this first essay, where my only design is to make men laugh and not to vex them. But bad lines many times cause more mirth than good ones. Where one laughs at the poems of Virgil, Homer, Ariosto, Du Bartas, etc., 20 will laugh at those of John Cockburn or Mr. Zachary Boyd. What hypochondriac would not presently be cured at the reading of those lines? There was a man called Job, dwelt in the land of Uz. He had a good gift of the gob. The same case happens us, end quote. Yes, I did say gob. Interestingly, gob is listed as a chiefly English regional term, while gab is listed as originally Scottish and also shows up in the mid to late 1700s. The Present State of the Parties in Great Britain by Daniel Defoe was published in 1712. Quote, in the choice of our preachers, what instances have we to determine us by, when, as before is noted, a half-bred youth that makes, as we call it, a good figure in the pulpit, one of Mr. Burgess's pure-blood preachers that has a little music upon his tongue, and reads handsomely, that talks apace, has the gift of the gob, and pleases our fancy, shall run away with the whole town, and draw crowds of hearers after him, end quote. So this quote gives us enough context to tell that this gift of the gob is a skill or talent that benefits the one who possesses the quality.
That's really cool. I want to jump in here with one. I know you're going to move into Sir Francis Grose's works, and so I want to jump in with one here from 1788 from the second edition of dictionary, a classical dictionary of the vulgar tongue, and this is Francis Grose. And this one is actually from the entry for blarney. This will give me the opportunity to real quickly say the Blarney Stone is in County Cork in Ireland and was placed in the 1400s. There's a story from that time frame that a man had kissed the stone and then won a legal case that he was working on, and from thenceforth came the story that anyone who had kissed the stone would be blessed with good speech, basically, you know. And of course, it wasn't originally called the Gift of Gab because that was not a phrase that was quite around yet in the 1400s.
Right.
But this is the entry for blarney. Quote, he has licked the Blarney Stone. He deals in the wonderful, or tips us the traveler. The Blarney Stone is a triangular stone on the very top of an ancient castle of that name in the county of Cork in Ireland. extremely difficult of access, so that to have ascended to it was considered a proof of perseverance, courage, and agility, whereof many are supposed to have claimed the honor, who never achieved the adventure, and to tip the blarney is figuratively used for telling a marvelous story or falsity, and also sometimes to express flattery.
Our next entry comes from the slang collection of one of Dan's favorite dictionarians.
That's why, right? Because I'm
like
like,
you messed
these.
up my transition.
No, but here's the deal. It's one of my favorites because Shauna got these for me for a gift several years ago when we started doing this podcast. I think it maybe it was pandemic times
Yeah.
when you got this for me. Obviously, we started doing the podcast in 2018, so that was a long time ago. But yes, so I've spent a lot of time reading these because a lot of these are really cool.
It is really fascinating. All right, let's take a look at Francis Gross's 1811 Dictionary of the Vulgar Tongue, a dictionary of buckish slang, university wit, and pickpocket eloquence. Quote, gab or gob, the mouth. Gift of the gab, a facility of speech, nimble-tongued eloquence. To blow the gab, to confess or preach, end quote. So in Gross's entry there, he lists the words gab and gob as interchangeable terms. And this seems to be a fairly accurate assessment for the usage leading up to and around this time frame. As you may expect, we see a decline in the use of the term gob, and gab only continues to grow in popularity. The Massachusetts Spy, December 5th, 1821, out of Worcester, Massachusetts, includes the snippet of a story. Quote, and what do you think of doing with your heir? A fine lad, too. Your only son, I think. He is, sir. Why, I think of making a doctor of him, but he prefers being a parson, and as I can afford to give him the first medications, it don't matter. He's a bright boy, he'll get on, and I can give him some thousands. Right, my honest friend, and I know a family that has high church interest. But we must not talk of that now. At another time we will. He'll make a capital bishop. He speaks well, don't he? Oh, aye, your honor, he has the gift of the gab, end quote. So we don't know this gentleman's motives, but he's definitely complimenting the son here. The American, September 6, 1895, out of Omaha, Nebraska, shared an article titled The Gift of Gab. Silence is not always golden. Exceptions to the rule.
All right, I like this. I like this idea.
The article wraps up with an interesting reflection. Quote, silence may be golden, and proud men full of such gold have starved because they would not speak of their necessities. The gift of gab is ready money. Reading makes a full man. So does eating, for that matter, though of late there have been a great many people who couldn't swear to this. Much study makes a learned man, but the man who is learned and silent is soon forgotten, if he is ever remembered. The wise man downtown may say he gives no drinks for wind, but all the same he must pay tolls on good talk. The man who has something to say and the wit to say it well is a power. Silence is golden, but the gift of gab somehow is most apt to take the cake. End quote.
The idea that someone with something to say and the wit to say it well is power. I mean, we've definitely seen that. How many politicians throughout the world have been elected or have ascended into power on their charisma and their ability to speak to people in a way that is compelling, regardless of the truth of whatever they may be saying, but the charisma that they bring to it. They have that gift of gab. They're able to talk to people and get people to listen and make people understand what they're saying and connect, and we see that among so many powerful people that is it really is a power as he mentions here.
Well, this article had some other fun items in it, including why the man downtown says no drinks for wind. And we're going to dig a little more into it in the behind the scenes video, which airs every Friday on our Patreon at patreon.com/bunnytrailspod. The Brownsville Herald, December 23rd, 1934, out of Brownsville, Texas, shares about the hit Gift of Gab, which was showing at the Rivoli Theater in San Benito. Quote, Gift of Gab at Arcadia. A glance at the cast and particularly the radio broadcast stars who have been added to screen favorites. indicates that Gift of Gab, scheduled at the Arcadia Theater in Harlington Tuesday and Wednesday, will prove highly entertaining. It is a colorful review of surprising completeness, which runs the gamut of comedy, drama, music, tropical, spectacle, and romance, and there is coherence tying it all together. End quote. I love that a coherent storyline was part of their advertising strategy. That's excellent.
Trust us. Trust us. There's coherence here. We promise.
It all ties together.
Honestly, even now, almost 100 years later, I would also love coherence sometimes in some of the stories that I see and hear.
Do these stories lines actually go together, or what? Last in our historical references, let's go to the Evening Star, December 6th, 1959, out of Washington, D.C. Quote, "Some of us are born rich, some beautiful, all young, but the most priceless gift of all is something no one inherits. Only a lucky few develop it, the gift of gab. How about you? Is your wit the nimble kind, always ready with the life-saving word that will get you out of trouble, win fame, fortune, and a pretty girl to spend it for you? Or does your brain curl up and hide until the crisis is past and then come swaggering out to tell you what you should have said?" End quote.
Hey, listen, as someone who has spent his life in crisis situations professionally, I can promise you that sometimes you are able to do all of the right things and do all of the stuff to get you out of trouble or whatever, and then also spend the rest of your time just before you go to bed at night wondering, oh man, I should have said this. Oh, why didn't I say this? You can do it both ways. You can have both.
You can have both.
You can have both.
Well, I thought that one was perfect. It's like one of those, the more things change, the more they stay the same. I think I've heard plenty of people tell a story about that zinger that they thought of, like you said, right, as they go to bed, or, moments after the other person's already left the conversation. Also, that excerpt really helps highlight the progression of the phrase over time. It started out being somewhat generally applied to a smooth talker or someone who could handle conversing in various settings. And eventually we get to those who can lead a whole town full of people right down the street, and now describing a person with an almost magical ability to charm others with their words. We have several modern uses we're going to cover, and we'll get to those right after we say thank you to our sponsors.
This episode is sponsored by our amazing patrons on Patreon. And the cool thing about Patreon is it is 100% free to join the Bunny Trails community. We have new things every weekday on the feeds. On Mondays, we have a conversation about what movies, shows, books, podcasts, and whatever else everyone is enjoying. Tuesdays see early access to the week's podcast. Wednesdays have all the links, books, songs, and other content mentioned in the week's episode. Thursday has patrons-only polls, and Fridays are our lightly edited, behind-the-scenes video featuring all the cut content, goofs, and bonus facts you could imagine.
We've got some other pretty cool stuff too, like original digital artwork once a month made by me, and direct access to talk with us. No algorithms getting in the way of what we see or don't see. Plus, you can get awesome name recognition like Pat Rowe does every episode. And our top spot is currently occupied by the amazing Mary Halsig Lopez. You can join the Bunny Trails community for free at Bunny Trails Pod on Patreon.
That's patreon.com/bunnytrailspod.
Gift of the Gab, Morsels of English Language History, is a 2011 novel by Kate Burridge. She starts with a foreword answering the tough questions. Quote, "Why Gift of the Gab?" Several years ago, Gift of the Gab, Australia and Languages, was chosen by the Australian Academy of Humanities as the name for its annual symposium. I loved the title, and it motivated me to investigate the complicated history of Gab and Gob. Very colloquial expressions are generally short-lived, but these two have endured. Both Gab and Gift of the Gab show the usual fate of survivors. They generally intrude into neutral style and become standard. End quote. An interesting look at linguistics a little differently there. The book Gift of the Gab, The Irish Conversation Guide by Tyke Hayes, with illustrations by Terry Willers, was published in 2012. Here's the synopsis. Quote, "For the unprepared visitor, Irish conversations can be a minefield. How's the crack? It's not an assumption that you are well versed in the properties of narcotic substances, merely an inquiry after your health and general well being. A seemingly easy question like, "You're not from around here, are ye?" requires a far more detailed reply than, "No, I'm not." In order not to be thought rude, you should supply details of where you live, why you are in Ireland, the tiny village now deserted from which your great great grandfather immigrated in the year dot, and to be really accepted, your salary figure, marital status, and daily eating habits. To the to the uninitiated, advice like this might seem extreme, but as Ty Hayes points out, the proper answer will save you from insistent and repeated questioning, which, in the case of the Irish, is motivated by genuine interest and not just downright nosiness. End quote.
That's good to know.
Yes, I did find this to be the case, and it didn't take a lot of details, but just sharing something that was personal or get that camaraderie seemed very important to just kind of everybody. So is a nice that's very good advice. Gift of Gab is a sorcerer spell in D&D. Here is an
That's Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh yes, I didn't even think that might need to to be spelled out. Nerd alert. Here's an overview of the spell from the D&D 5e wiki fandom site. Quote, Jim Darkmagic is said to have invented this spell, originally calling it, "I said what?" Have you ever been talking to the local monarch and accidentally mentioned how their son looks like your favorite hog from when you were growing up on the family farm? We've all been there. But rather than being beheaded for an honest slip of the tongue, you can pretend it never happened by ensuring that no one knows it happened. When you cast this spell, you skillfully reshape the memories of listeners in your immediate area so that each creature of your choice within 5 feet of you forgets everything you said within the last 6 seconds. Those creatures then remember that you actually said the words you speak as the verbal component of the spell. End quote. What a powerful spell that I have
Yeah.
not been hearing some sorcerers use.
Yeah, no, that is really cool. I wonder what level of a spell that is, but yeah, I have not.
I think
I don't
I
really.
think it's second level.
I don't really play sorcerers,
I don't
so
either.
or frankly spellcasters much because it's too complicated for me, and I like to just really get into it, and that would be a lot of extra work
Yeah,
for
I gotta be
me.
honest. I play as like a ranger or a monk, which they have some magic, but it's not all this complicated stuff like sorcerers and wizards. So I might judge from a distance, but I have no idea what they're actually deciding over there.
Right, right, yeah, yeah. No, it definitely shows on the wiki that it's a second level enchantment for this.
Get on it, sorcerers.
I
Let's have this
guess there
going
you
on.
go.
All right, switching gears, we have to talk about rap for a minute. For that, I'll be reading from a 2021 article by Gabe Moline shared on kqed.org titled The Gift of Gab 5 Songs to Know by the Blackalicious Legend. Quote, The Gift of Gab, who died June 18th at the age of 50, was a bona fide Bay Area legend. Underappreciated nationally, he occupied a special place in Bay Area hip hop, immensely skilled, imaginative, earnest, and filled with stamina. Gab was a powerhouse on the stage, a thrill to watch. And while we won't get that chance again, he leaves behind a large body of recorded work. Here are some of his more memorable tracks. Alphabet Aerobics. Gab's signature track is a dexterous workout, a mini marathon of lyricism and an accelerando run through the alphabet that should be taught in every kindergarten class. It's the Blackalicious song most people know memorably. Daniel Radcliffe performed it on The Tonight Show and proved a guaranteed showstopper in live sets. End quote.
All right, I think that I have not seen this, so
Oh,
I will have
goodness.
to try and find it, and if I
So
can.
on the link there, you can find you will find his version of it.
Uh-huh.
And then you'll also find a link to the Daniel Radcliffe performance.
So I will. Well, cool. We've got that link. It'll be in the show notes, and it'll also be on free for anyone. You just have to go to our Patreon, patreon.com/bunnytrailspod. Those appear on Wednesdays, and we make them public so anybody can take a look at them. But I also I will see if I can't find a good version of it.
Gift of Gab Design does all sorts of artistic things like balloons, artwork, calligraphy, and seasonal decor. The namesake, Gab, creates really interesting and colorful custom pieces on canvas, champagne bottles. It's really neat artwork. She also creates items focused on the fur babies in the family with pet heirlooms. It's like really bright colors. It's really happy, is how it feels to look
When you
at
say
it.
fur babies, this is referring to people's pets.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
I
So
don't know why, but
paintings and
I
things.
I dislike that terminology. I hear people use it sometimes, and I always get confused by it, and it just is not permeated into my brain,
I
and I always
see.
have to use context clues. So for whatever reason, and I know I've heard it lots of times, but it just doesn't register to me that they mean their pets. So I
Fair
just don't know
enough.
why.
Yeah. I think because my mom says it and is like then talks about her dog. So it's like I think maybe that's what's kind of solidified it. But I think maybe if you have pets, that helps, you know?
My son has a snake, and he never called it a fur baby.
Fair.
My other kid has cats, and I don't know what he calls them. I've never heard him refer to them as fur babies, but that doesn't mean he doesn't.
Yeah. He just mostly makes those like baby voice noises at them.
No, that's everyone though. That's nothing.
Oh, okay. That's just
Everyone,
what
everyone
everybody
has
does.
everyone who's not a serial killer has a voice that they use to talk to pets, and that is my first thing that I will notice about someone. If I'm like, I do not trust this person if they do not have a voice that they
Oh,
have when they talk to pets. So
fair.
like, because you can get like this big burly guy with like maybe this big dude, bald head, black suit, like without knuckles tattooed on his actual knuckles, and it's like you look at him and you're like, that man might just punch all the way through my face, just,
Mm-hmm.
if I look at him wrong. But then, a kitty will jump up and be like, oh, little kitty, and then
Right.
I'll pet the kitty cat, and I'm like, never mind, he's cool, dude. It's fine. It's
It'd
fine.
be
It's cool.
deeper than that. It'd be like, little kitty.
Yeah, it'd be little kitty.
I can't.
Oh, look at you, little kitty. I don't know why we do that, but if you don't do that, I'm judging you
I mean,
harshly.
I feel like there's probably a psychological something.
No, probably. I don't. I
There's
don't
an
have any idea.
there are experts out there who probably know. I'm done with my guesses now. The Gift of Gab is an artwork designed by Sasso, and it's available on art2go.com. This particular painting features three human skulls turned toward one another, almost as if in conversation. They're kind of cartoonesque or sketched design.
Well, they're skulls, so they're not like hyper realistic or anything.
Right, that's what I was going with. They're not hyper realistic. The primary colors are at play with one skull in red, one in yellow, and one in blue with a gray background. And it's a bold, quirky, fun piece of art, in my opinion. I'm liking it. This site, art2go.com, works with artists to provide art on demand. They offer something in between mass produced artworks and one of a kind, 100% handmade works. So in this case, the Gift of Gab is digitally signed by the artist, but it's still the artist's design and it's made from mixed media, paint on canvas, etc. But here's the deal, you don't have to find a frame and do all that. It comes in a nice wooden frame ready to be displayed. I think it's kind of a cool concept.
Interesting.
Like bridging the gap, you know?
Sure. I don't know. I'm not sure I understand what any of that meant, but that style of art
Okay.
is not my thing. So.
Fair enough. It just lets you get more unique artworks without buying Van Gogh's pieces, you know?
Oh, yeah. Well, what if everyone just cut off their ear?
Yeah, no.
That's not a thing? All right,
No,
whatever.
why would that be the solution?
Well, I don't know. It worked for him, I think.
Oh, dear.
Wait, did he paint all that cool stuff before or after he cut off his ear? This is probably
Both.
very important suddenly.
It was both.
Both. Oh, he painted some cool stuff before and then cut some cool stuff after?
Yeah, he kind of kept the ear for a bit. They were trying to. Anyway, it's a whole thing. You should
Oh,
read
man.
about it sometime.
No, I don't think I want to.
Talking about happy things. Dan's,
Yeah, how did we turn
Dan's
this into
really-
a sad thing?
Dan's really helping me. You talked about cutting everyone's ears off.
Oh, was that me? Did I say that?
You did.
But no need to roll back the tape. No need to go check on that, listeners. All
Okay.
right.
Dan's really helping me with my transitions today.
Fine. Pretend like I didn't say anything and go ahead and do your thing.
Gift of Gab is a good phrase.
Oh yeah, I see where I ruined that. Yeah, sorry. All right, that one's on me.
That's where we are. It's fun, it's simple, and it's a lighthearted way of saying someone's good at talking. You know, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. That's all I got. All right. Well, that's all we have for today. If you have any thoughts on the show or pop culture references we should have included, reach out to us on Patreon. That's patreon.com/bunnytrailspod, or comment on our website, bunnytrailspod.com.
All right, it is patron poll time. Recently, we asked our patrons, what's your jelly flavor? And we did make the note, jelly, jam, preserves, doesn't matter to us, just tell us the flavor. With that, grape came in first, which is a little status quo, but not to be unexpected.
Boring. Or
Yeah.
are you people buying the jelly and the peanut butter together, maybe? Is that the great?
No, you stop it right
Is
now.
that
That's
not the worst
unacceptable.
idea ever? Okay,
That's
anyway.
just unacceptable. All right, so grape came in first place. There was a tie for second place, which was strawberry and apple.
I forgot
Both of
about
those.
apple butter until just now.
Okay, well, apple butter is not a jelly or a jam or preserve, so
Oh, okay, good. Then
so
it doesn't
it's
have
not.
to compete.
It doesn't.
Okay.
It's also not butter, by the way. So
Right, it's just I don't even know what it is. Spices,
it
I
is. In
guess?
fact, there are apples in it though,
Oh,
so he
okay,
does
good,
have
good,
that going
good,
on.
good.
Anyway, we're not talking about that. And then in I guess fourth place, since a tie for second, and there's two of them, that takes up second and third place. So then there's a tie for fourth place, fourth and fifth here, with raspberry and peach, which I think is interesting. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So yeah. Emily said, quote, I also like a local favorite, pomegranate jelly, end quote. I think
Pomegranate.
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, like that sounds really good. I've never had that before and I want some now.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a local, but like there's a sand plum jelly I see a lot here in this part of Kansas where I don't remember running into it before a lot. So that might be a local one around here. I've never had it because I don't know what a sand plum is. Like, I'm not from here. So I'm like, I don't know what a sand plum is, but it sounds like a euphemism, like where you like Rocky Mountain oysters or like, I don't know,
Yeah.
bull testicles or something. So it's like
But maybe
sand plum jelly. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't trust you people
what if it's
with your
just like
euphemisms.
it's just like the wrong name for something else, like it's an apricot or something,
Maybe it's the right name for something, and I've been calling something wrong the
Maybe
whole
it's
time.
just a plum. Maybe it's the color of the plum. Like,
It's
some
just
of
a
them are
sandy
like,
looking plum.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
like
I don't
I have no
know.
idea, honestly. And I've lived here. Um,
Apparently, it's also called a Chickasaw plum. So yeah, sand plums. Yeah, in the
okay, there we
Kansas,
go.
I hit the thing, and there's a thing by the Sandy Hill plum. It's the most common wild plum in western Kansas, and is found on sandy prairies, where it is very effective in stopping blowing sand. And this is from the Kansas Forest Service.
Oh,
So how interesting! All
that's
right,
really
well,
cool.
there you go.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Well, my favorites are strawberry preserves and blueberry jelly. Like if it's made not jelly but jam, I guess. I don't know. Like made fresh. So you just like boil the blueberries
Oh
right
yeah,
there.
you're just
Like you're cooking them
just
right
like
now.
I can't be bothered with this canned stuff. I have to make it fresh.
It's
You're like a
so
hipster for
good.
jelly. What is wrong with you?
I don't even know if it's jelly at that point. Because, like, cranberry sauce, same thing. I feel like that's kind of like jelly, basically. When you're done making the cranberry sauce, it's basically jelly or jam. It's delicious.
I have been on record as saying that I don't eat cranberry sauce,
Oh,
which only comes up during American Thanksgiving, which is okay by me. But I just don't. I've never really enjoyed it. It's never been my thing.
mm,
But I love that other people love it.
there you go. I also love jalapeno jelly, which I just remembered. My uncle makes jalapeno
Yeah,
jelly. It's really
it's one of
good.
mine on my list to talk about. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I stole your thunder
thievery.
that one
Yeah,
time.
there you go. You win. You win this round.
Well, Jan said, quote, ever had a bologna and grape jelly sandwich? Obviously not, Jan.
Finish the quote.
Pretty tasty. I make my own yogurt and sometimes use jelly for the fruit on the bottom. I ran out of the main fruit I was using and only had jalapeno jelly in the fridge, so I used that. Some of the best yogurt I've had. End quote.
I think that this would not be bad because I am a bologna fan. Not cold, but like fry it up a little bit. You have to cut it into a little Pac-Man shape though, because it comes in a circle. And if you don't, it'll like, I don't know, like bloop up on itself. That's it's a technical term.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you got to cut it so that it lays flat, right? Otherwise, it cups up. Becomes convex, also concave, I guess technically, depending on which way you look at it.
Which side you're on.
But anyway, you cut a little thing and then it fries up and it looks like a Pac-Man. We call them Pac-Man sandwiches. And we used to do that, and we threw a little bit of the government issued cheese on it. Or we could, if we were splurging, we'd have Velveeta, and then we would put that and then fry it onto a sandwich, and it was so good. And I could see where grape jelly would also taste good on that. I could see that. Yeah.
I've not seen it, but I also
You don't like bologna?
don't like bologna. Not
Yeah, so
even
you're
a little
already
bit.
you're
Like,
biased.
I know.
And also the jalapeno jelly sounds amazing because
That
yes, I
sounds
agree with you
so
there.
good. Yeah, that sounds
Absolutely.
amazing.
Yeah. Well, I'm a traditional grape jelly on toast kind of guy in the mornings. If I'm going out to a diner or something, I will oftentimes get toast and then just throw some grape jelly on it and call it good. But sometimes I'll rock with an apple jelly if it's available. I use red raspberry jelly in my little Smokies recipe alongside grape
Ah,
jelly.
those are those little tiny hot dog things
Yeah,
that you
yeah,
make.
yeah,
Okay,
exactly.
they're good.
But the recipe I have from my grandma actually used red currant jelly, but I can't find red currant jelly in Kansas. So
Gotcha.
darn.
I
So
got
instead, I normally use red raspberry instead.
nice. I found some red currant cough drops while I was in Ireland, and they
Oh,
were
interesting.
amazing.
Yeah, currants are, I don't know about the red currants, but currant is like an Eastern Mediterranean thing. That's where it's native to,
Ah,
although it's
okay.
grown in California now a lot too.
Yeah.
But I also like going to the farmer's market and getting a small container of different jellies to try. So my favorite that I've tried is also the jalapeno jelly. So yeah, I'm right there with you, Jan. And
Yeah.
Shauna, you also mentioned it too. There's just something about the sweet and spice between those two that makes it oh so good. So I really like that.
Agreed.
All right. Well, as a reminder, our silly polls mean absolutely nothing and are not scientifically valid. But patrons of all levels, including our free tiers, can take part. Head over to patreon.com/bunnytrailspot to take this week's poll. Thanks for joining us. We will talk to you again next week. And until then, remember, words belong to their users.